Welcome to the Cup of Joe Show, where we explore the journey of recovery from alcohol and drug addiction. One story, one conversation, and one step at a time. I'm your host, Joe, creating a safe space for honest discussions about the challenges and triumphs of addiction and alcoholism. In each episode, we'll hear inspiring stories and uncover tools that make healing possible. Sobriety is not a one-size-fits-all journey, and you don't have to face it alone. Recovery is possible, and it's worth it. Thank you for joining the Cup of Joe Show. Now let's get started.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Cup of Joe Show. I'm your host, of course, Joe. And before we get started, I just want you to know if you're out there struggling right now, you're not alone. So please don't suffer in silence. Now today's guest I'm very excited about is Gabbi S from Atlanta, Georgia. She's been sober since January 7th, 2016. She's a wife, a mom, and a woman whose life today is grounded in service. After learning to say yes when she didn't want to, after showing up when it was inconvenient, Gabbi built a life centered around recovery and family. From starting and growing a big book meeting with her husband to walking through a full busy season of life, she's discovered that the greatest gift sobriety has given her isn't perfection, it's peace. I'm really looking forward to learning about her story. So grab a cup of coffee, settle in, and let's get into it. Hi, Gabbi. How are you?
Hey, Joe. I'm well. So happy to be here. Thank you.
I am so grateful that you decided to join me and were willing to share your story. So thank you for that.
Absolutely.
So what was it like growing up, Gabbi?
Oh, wow. Well, first of all, I'm just full of gratitude today. And even just hearing that opening kind of made me a little emotional. So I have to reset again. It's powerful to go from where we were at to where we're at now. And I'm just so full of gratitude. So a little bit about my childhood. Nothing but good things, to be honest with you. It's so important. I share about this because when you hear a lot of people, talk about alcoholism, they're like, what happened to you? And nothing happened to me. No reason to be an alcoholic, right? And that's the importance about identification. And so my childhood was full of love. Okay, that's really how I put it in a nutshell. I had two very present parents. I had a father who was home at night for dinner and active in our lives. And he was a busy man. He was a doctor and had probably all the reasons not to be there. And boy, was he plugged into our life and loved us very much. And I say the same for my mom. She was a stay-at-home mom, and our house was always full of just fun and creativity. And she's a Puerto Rican, and so we always had music on. And being raised in the 80s, music videos when mom's running around and all the fun things you can think about. I do have a sister as well, so she's a couple years older than me, and I will say we have just such great memories, and just talking about it now just makes me just happy. That's really it in a nutshell. So my parents as well, they weren't drinkers. And so I wasn't raised exposed to alcohol. If there was any booze of any sort, it happened somewhere outside the house, maybe a glass of wine here and there, but that was not something that was in the center of my life. So once again, not exposed to any type of alcohol or alcoholism. So it was really non-existent. And that is in a nutshell, my family life, but yeah, great memories.
I love the smile you have on your face. I know the audience can't see that, but when you talk about your family, like your mom and dad, and your face lights up, and that's it says a lot. I think it's important for people to know we didn't all come from tragic childhoods. Some of us have, sadly, but a lot of us haven't, and that's important for people to know. That really doesn't have anything to do with addiction. It doesn't have anything to do with alcoholism. It's not why we are what we are. So thank you for sharing that. What was your earliest attitudes towards alcohol and drugs? Do you remember?
Oh, I remember very well. And the thing is, we talk about unmanageability in our first step and not even knowing what that spiritual malady is. And that really was the first experience, I would say, as an alcoholic, even though I wasn't drinking. My first, around 12 years old, things started shifting for me. Once again, no reasons, nothing. And then I started taking a turn like inwardly. I just started feeling less than, different, not pretty enough, all those things. And, you go through your puberty phases in middle school, but something was different. There was just this change. And I also had a good group of friends, and I was a really good pretender. You'll hear that throughout my story. And I, no matter what, I was okay, even if you told me something was wrong, because my friends would always be a little bit worried about me and my changes. And I was at my friends, a couple of girlfriends had us over that like weekend. We were 12 years old, right? And her brothers were a little older, and they were an Irish family, and they drank. It's a stereotype, but I'm just saying they were heavy drinkers. And so we were able to be exposed to alcohol. And it's kind of interesting to be able to grab a drink if you're young. You're like, ooh, this is exciting. And my first drink, because I remember having a choice, there was options, was a big bottle of Goldschlagers. And I was like, I'm going to try this. And I tried it and I liked it. And that was it. But I'm 42 years old now, and I was 12, and I remember my first drink. And I just don't think that's normal things, behavior. But that was really the first thing that I started feeling like, oh, I like this and I want more of this. But I didn't become a full-blown alcoholic, but it did something to me that I wanted more of. And so throughout my high school and my college years, my motives were always like, wherever the drink is, I'm going to be. So that was my first experience with alcohol, and kind of filling up that ease and comfort that I needed.
And it is funny. Like, we think about like our first drink, and, mine was peach schnapps under a boardwalk. And I was like, and it was warm and it was disgusting. And I was like, this is really cool. I felt, I don't know what I didn't get drunk, but I felt something, like you said, it was like, this is, who knew this is going to be a part of me for the rest of my life, but, so
anything I could get my hands on. Right. I remember Mad Dog 2020 or whatever that stuff. Yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, maybe this might be a weird question. I don't know, but like, what were you feeling on the inside? When you said like things changed and you kind of went more inward, can you put your finger on how you actually felt?
So our literature explains it so beautifully on page 52 with the bedevilments. It really does. I shared that a lot in my story. I was feeling useless, unhappy, prone to depression, right? Even though there's different words for that now. Just very fearful of the future. I carry this weight of just all this fear, and I have no idea why I had it, but like, we're growing up, my people are changing, and I'm starting to feel consumed that all of a sudden I'm going to have to just take on the world. It was just, it's wild to have to experience that at such a young age, when I don't have anyone at home giving me pressure. I don't even have pressure to go to college. It's just this mindset I developed, and it's a phenomenon in a way. I don't know why we're more prone to that as alcoholics, but that's that unmanageability piece we discuss. And that leads to that feeling restless, irritable, discontented. And eventually I find something that works to help with that. And I never had pressures. I couldn't, like I said, I had the most amazing childhood. I had no pressures from my family. I had no expectations. And so carrying that for a long time will make you a very scared person inside, and then having to pretend on the outside, because I was popular, I was outgoing, I had friends, but nobody knew I was carrying this. I wish we could figure it out, study us, figure out what's going on. But that's why, we get this program to get connected to power.
Yeah. And we're, at least my experience has been with people like us, very driven. and we're driven by whatever it is we're focusing on, whether that's alcohol or fear or, I know that's kind of how I was, it's it's relentless, it's an internal relentlessness. And I always, kind of describe it like I just did not feel comfortable in my own skin. I just did not, and I didn't necessarily have a reason not to. I was a goofy kid, but I wasn't any different than the rest of the goofy kids out there. It just, so,
yep.
How did your drinking kind of progress in high school? Was it?
Yeah. So high school, I would say, is kind of the typical drinking for me. I went to a private Catholic school my whole life growing up. And so I had really good childhood friends into high school. And we would kind of like what I described in 7th grade, we stayed friends and we all had our weekend get-togethers. And it was just typical beer and liquor and being silly and goofy. And it wasn't anything crazy, but we all went home on Sundays and went to school on Mondays. And life, I wasn't getting arrested. I wasn't going crazy. Once again, I was really good at flying under that radar because I did not want to disappoint my parents. I didn't want to let them down. I always had this huge respect for my parents, and I wanted to what's the word, make them proud. And so I never wanted to hurt them. And that's why it's so, when you're dealing with alcoholism, you're dealing with something you don't even know you're up against. And you're like, what's wrong with me? How did I become this way? And thank God we have a program that shows us. But yeah, that was my high school experience was, and it wasn't all bad. I had fun, but throughout high school, I carried this spiritual malady. I mean, this hole in my soul. So I just became a great liar. And yeah, everything's okay. No worries. I'll figure it out. Life is good.
The old fine.
Nothing outside the ordinary. Yep.
Oh,
I'm fine.
I was, when I first came in, I remember being told, it was probably in one of my tours of duty in rehab. I was told what fine actually meant. It's like, yeah. And for those listening, if you don't know, what they tell you that fine means is effed up, insecure, neurotic, and emotionally out of control. And it was like, yes, I'm fine.
Yep.
So looking back, were there signs that maybe you were at risk for alcoholism or?
So alcoholism runs in my family. My mom told us this later in life, of course, but her father was an alcoholic and her brothers were alcoholics. My dad's side, there's probably someone down the line, but that is where was one of her reasons. In a way, she actually expressed to my father, she did not want to have children. She was worried that something like this could happen. And I've been told that this is a genetic illness. I don't know the science, so I'm not going to go there, but either way, somebody got the bullet and it was me. So she shared that with me. And she also shared with me that even through the things I went through, I asked her, why didn't you let me, try not to tear up thinking about this, but why didn't you let me just go? And she's like, she told counselors and people when they were trying to help me, I'm never going to put my daughter on the street ever. So she saw what happened to her as a child. And, here I am suffering. So I can't even imagine what that was like, but I'm going off on a tangent. But yeah, that was where I would say I got it from. Yeah, there's more to that story, of course, as we speak, but she felt she carried a lot of guilt for that. And what are you gonna do? You can't not have kids. Knowing that I have a son, and we stopped at one for one of the reasons, for that reason too, but it is what it is. So, but that's where I think I got it from. And I've heard that some of the things that your parents carry from being around alcoholic homes rub off on you as well. And I learned that in taking the steps. I learned that some of my character defects, and I don't blame anybody, came through my mom, not in a bad way, but I learned some of the ways to be I was one of those people that was good at confrontation, and I was comfortable there, and a little bit of anger. And because in a way, I think you have to protect yourself in those settings as a child. So I've learned that I've kind of uncovered a lot with that, and hopefully that makes some sense. But yeah, that's where I believe it all stemmed from.
Yeah. Our moms kind of carry a lot. I think my mom did too. I was raised by a single mom. I was a single mom and a grandmother. So they were my, but yeah, and my father, he's still in my life, but it's, and they were divorced, and he was kind of in and out of my life. And I remember he always used, I feel like I'm the one that did that to you. And one of the things I told him at one time, it was really bad. Is Dad, you're not that powerful. You're just not, nope. You did not do this to me. But yeah, it's, I can imagine your mom carrying some of that weight, and it was unnecessary, like you said, so you go to college, and are things kind of getting worse, or is it just kind of riding through?
My short-lived experience with college. I was not someone who, being a kid, right, the 90s, you don't know how to express yourself to your parents. Now I think the teenagers are a lot more like, I can express my feelings. And so I just assumed I had to go to college, and I probably could have said, hey, maybe not. But I got into a college, and I went, but I carried all this, baggage with me, this emotional hole in my soul there as well. And I went to school for about 2 years in college, and it was a pretty short-lived experience. I academically did well for the time being, but then I got distracted. This is when the outside consequences started. And so I started getting involved with bad relationships. I started having car accidents. I started not going to classes. I just got involved with the people that could get me to alcohol faster and other non-conference approved outside issues. So I think it's really, my experience in college wasn't what I wish it could have been. Probably because I wasn't being honest with myself. I didn't know how to voice that. I didn't really want to go. And then it led me down the path of a little bit more destruction. But that pushed me into my next phase, which was, like you mentioned, treatments and rehabs. Yeah. And I don't go into my war stories. It's not that unique. It's just like, you just put your own there, chaos. Yeah. Burning it down. On page 21, we talk about it in The Real Alcoholic, right? Burning it down, tearing the structures down over and over again. That's what we do.
It definitely is what we do. At some point, it just, it's kind of like, I drank like you did. You drank like I did, our consequences may have been different, or whatever may have been some different, but, I certainly understand it. Were there times when you tried to stop and couldn't?
Oh yeah. And that's, I believe, when I finally came to the point where I couldn't continue living like I was living in college, and dropping out and moving back home, and trying to figure out maybe I need a job. And then that kind of fell through again in my early 20s. And remembering, not everybody, but my friends I grew up with, they all drank hard. Like, everyone drank and partied hard, right? But they got up and went to school. They got up and went to work. So it was really hard to know that I was any different. I was just young. I'm going to get my life together at 25. I kept telling myself this. So, I apologize. What was the question one more time? I got sidetracked. It's probably because it's past my bedtime. I'm kidding.
I was 20. Mine too. By the way, it's 3:00 in the afternoon. No, I'm just kidding. I'm joking. Were there specific moments, like, you can remember you tried to stop but couldn't?
Oh gosh, I would say that I became more aware of that later on, when I was drinking. But I think in my I would just say because I could not stop drinking after going to 5 to 6 rehabs. It wasn't really a specific time. I just wanted this to stop. I did not like who I was. I'm like, why am I like this? I have no reason to be this way. Why am I such a F up? Why can't I finish college? Why can't I make the right choices? And because I'm a really nice person for the most part, right? Like I'm a good kid, but why can't I get my life together like everyone else? So I don't have a specific time, but it was all the times I went in and out of treatment, I think, where I just couldn't stay stopped, right? Because at the time, I don't want to think that I have a drinking problem, the usual excuse, right? I have another issue. Yeah. And I don't even know what alcoholism is. I've never been to AA. I don't know what I'm dealing with. So that's why we were introduced to going to rehabs. That was where the answer was. I was going to get well.
Yeah. And I think that's a big misconception. And rehab, listen, I'm grateful for rehab. And I think it gave me a running start. It gave me some basis for recovery, but rehab is not recovery, and I think that's important for people to know. It's recovery starts after rehab. And, my second tour of duty, I was voted most likely to stay sober. I'm just kidding. They don't vote. And 2 weeks later, I'm in jail with a DUI. It's just, I understand that.
And, I've heard people say we discover in rehab and we recover when I go to the right fellowship. And I didn't, know any of that because we're all put in one place and doing the best they can, what they got. And I did not take any of the suggestions. And I'll get into that a little bit later when I introduce you to my husband, because that's just what we do. We make poor decisions because I'm in charge. I know what's best for me.
Yes, that is. So what was kind of the lowest point you think is there a low point?
Oh yeah. Well, that moves us into, I'm already the lowest point before I get to what happened, I would say was early 30s. I'm already married, have a kid, and I'm married to another alcoholic, by the way, who we meet in a place where we're both well, right? So we have the best of each other. And of course that doesn't last because we've never taken the steps. We don't have program. And about 4.5 years later into the relationship, it's just, I told you earlier that I have a lot of anger when I drink. I am scary to say the least. And so we get to this place where the progression hits, and it's like drinking for me, I went from, 6 o'clock to drinking to 4 o'clock, then to 11, up to 9 a.m. to 7 a.m. needing to drink and not being able to turn it off. And around, I would say December 2015, it all really hit the fan. Another huge fight, the constant fighting. I joke about this because my husband doesn't think it's funny, but I used to break electronics. So he's not really happy when I go near a printer. He's like, what are we doing here? I'm like, well, I've been sober I've been sober 10 years, like chill out, but there's trauma there. So that was definitely, around then I had a moment of clarity when we had our last and final fight where I was completely ready to I was done. I had a Bill W moment. I'm just so grateful. I had a white light moment where I knew what I needed to do. I'd had enough experience knowing about AA, and it was time to get well. And it's just like happened like that. But that wasn't, it took me a while to get there, right? In and out of treatment for years. The cotton so stuck in my ears. I didn't hear anything. But man, it was such a low point, and our little boy was in the house, and it just was like, I can't live like this anymore. And I no longer wanted him to get fixed. Like I couldn't fix anyone, right? I can't get I can't get anyone well. I can't get myself well. So I finally surrendered. And I had that moment so clear in my head today. I remember where I was, exactly what I felt like. It was time. And that took a beating though for years. It's brutal.
Yeah. My friend John calls it getting beaten to a state of reasonableness.
Yeah. Yep. It's the great persuader, isn't it? This thing.
It is. It is.
We're so lucky if we get a moment of clarity. And the thing is, that's not enough. I got to hold on to that and take action. And that is exactly what I did. I always go back to like my family and my parents, and like, I really, really just was tired of taking and hurting. And I something happened where I was like, I can't do this anymore. And I sometimes wonder, why can't everyone get that? I don't know. Yeah, it's tough.
Yeah, we don't know. And, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. That's what we're told, and sometimes, you made me think when you're talking about your husband, because I had a lot of relationships where we were basically drinking partners, very toxic, and I remember being told, two sickies don't make a welly. And I was like, I just always hated that.
That is true.
It is true, though. It is true. But, so you have this moment of clarity. What did surrender look like for you?
Oh, man. So so I could paint it beautifully because I have it so clear in my head. I called my mom. Oh, do you want to know from like a specific, or what is surrender? Okay, I'm going to tell you what happened. I called my mom. I said, okay, this is it. I know what I need to do. She's like, okay, I can only be there to help you, whatever support you need, but I can't give you anything, right? Because I didn't mention my parents would always help, get me out of trouble or, be enabled in a way. And they were just trying to be helpful. And so I no longer became a taker. Like I shared, I said, I needed to go to the local clubhouse, go to a meeting. I'm ready to get well. And I went in, I got my white chip, and I sat all the way down, right? We go all the way in, we sit all the way down. And I remember hearing, and thank God for people who read the literature in our rooms, I remember hearing and identifying immediately that I had an allergy to alcohol. And in all this happening, though, I was surrendering. It's just, I no longer wanted this life. I didn't care if I stayed with my husband anymore. I didn't care if we never saw him again. I'm not blaming him. Okay. I'm just saying what I had to do, because I was trying to get everyone, I was trying to run the show and fix it. So my surrender really came to knowing I needed to go to AA. I needed to sit down. I needed to hear these things and just take action. And it just unfolded. It almost was just happening without me even really knowing what the heck I was supposed to be doing. But thank goodness for repetition in the program. And I'll continue after if you want to ask me another question, because I could go on and on about this experience.
I want to hear about that. I think it's an important thing to share with people.
Yeah. So I went to NABA. It's a clubhouse here in Georgia, and I got my white chip. It was an early morning study, and they do the big book and I read it. And I started going to this meeting every single day. And there was a woman who I had met when I tried to get sober for a few months before in 2015, because I was, we're trying to get, we're exhausted. You know how it goes. Never took the steps, never used my sponsor, all the things that we don't. I don't even know what a sponsor's supposed to do, right? Well, this woman, I actually called back, and she, after telling her politely I no longer needed her service because I was going to drink again, thank you so much. And so she was kind enough to take me back in, and she basically said, call me at this time, do this go to these meetings. And she, in a way, was, I don't want to say testing me, but giving me little tools, as simple as driving my car to a meeting, getting into a literature study, calling her. Those are the simple things I did. And I did everything she told me to do. I told you, getting uncomfortable, saying yes to everything, not knowing what any of this stuff was. Steps, like, what is this? But okay. And as I did these things, my life, I just started, a week goes by, you start feeling a little bit better. You start doing the right thing, like right living, right? We're not knowing we're taking these action steps to get well. And so I started doing all these things. And then my husband, I basically gave him an ultimatum, and it said, you're never going to see me again. ever if you don't get well. And it is a threat, but there's a point where, a lot of, and I see it now in my sobriety, we want to fix our partners. And sometimes you just got to walk away. And I'm not telling anybody to do that, but I'm saying is I have no power to help anyone who is in the depths of alcoholism. Right. And so he decided, though, he was going to do it so well to show me it didn't work, that he's not only 2 days ahead of me in sobriety, but it worked so well that we are now both thriving and living our life and thank God. And I'll get into that later. But yeah, I just said yes to everything. And I didn't even know I was taking these steps in the beginning. I was taking direction. I was willing. I was open. And I did not have a God of my understanding. I had no idea what God was. I put God on the shelf a long time ago because I didn't have to go to church at a young age. So I did not like God and nothing to do with God. And I just became open to all things. And this whole world opened for me. And I just started living. And it was not easy, but it was simple little tools that helped me start becoming, alive again, right? Awaken. We talk about that in our spiritual experience. We get to experience life again. And so that's what happened, and got plugged in as usual, got a home group, took time to start doing things with my husband where we did our home group together. We got a babysitter for one night a week. I mean, we were in it. I was holding doors. You told me to jump, I jumped. And in all of this, it's just God started working in my life, even though he's always been working in my life. I just let him in, right? Open the channel up. So yeah, I get a little bit excited when I start talking about it because all you got to do is take action and say yes. And it is easier said than done. I can tell you right now.
I love that. You said you just take action, say yes, take action, say yes, and that's a huge, huge deal, and I want to celebrate your husband, as a fellow guy. Congratulations.
Oh yeah.
Good for you. I mean, that says a lot about him too. Both of you, to be able to go through that together and early, what was some of the challenges early on in sobriety?
It's really important to stay in your lane. It felt like forever, you're like separated for a whole week and a half, right? Like you think it's like a lifetime, but we both did our program separately. I didn't get involved in his. I didn't have expectations of him because I was still expecting the other, shoe to fall and vice versa, I'm sure. Right. But it was just, it happened so fast in a way, but, yeah, sorry. I'm so embarrassed. What was the question again? Hopefully you can edit this.
No way, Gabby. I love that. I love it. You get so excited, and
I do. It's a problem.
No, I think it's awesome. I think it's
yeah. So what were the things we did separately, right? No, what were
some of the challenges?
The challenges, right?
Yeah.
So that was, I think, for me, learning for him to get a group of men and people in his life that he would take time to be with, even though I knew it was best for him. Like we get a little bit selfish. We're like, well, what about our time? Even though we're doing this for each other. I see that a lot. Like I hear with some of the friends I have in the program whose partners are like, well, when are you going to be not doing as much AA and whatnot? And like, this is the thing that saves our lives. And so I actually laugh at that because I'm in AA knowing what he has to do. And so we get a little jealous. So that was one of the, I would say, lighter things. And also learning emotional sobriety, learning how to live. Don't get it twisted. Like even a year or two, we would have our moments and we would have kind of your outbursts a little bit. You're raising a kid. Our son was 4 years old. So just trying to parent and learn how to live. I haven't learned any tools for living at all. I can brush my teeth and get the groceries, but being a grown-up, I stunted my growth at 12. All right. And here I am in my 30s raising a kid, full house, all these life things are happening, and I'm having to do sobriety as well. And so we had challenges in general in a marriage, just growing up together. But our love was so solid. I mean, it trumped everything. Truly, we always got through it because we were so plugged into this program that, and we really put it first before everything, and it always brought us back. But a lot of learning, got to go through it. And we also did some outside help, which I encourage. We did couples counseling and some other work, and I'm all for it, especially in the beginning if you need to do it. It's not what my sponsors are for, not to go dump your stuff on, and I'm not going to go there, but we did a lot of work, but we took our steps, we took the action, and we started living these principles at home. And I learned how to say, I'm sorry. I learned at a young age how not to say you're sorry. And it wasn't something that was told to me. I just picked up on it. So a little stubbornness. I learned, and I'll tell you, there's nothing more freeing than being able to say, I was wrong. I'm sorry I harmed you. And I learned that in the steps.
And that is very powerful and very freeing. How long were you married before you guys got sober?
Oh man. So we, 2011 and it's 2026. So we got sober until about 4 years. I'm really bad at math, but about 4 years. Yeah. It was off to the races. It was rough. I mean, it wasn't all bad, but you can imagine, daytime, you're acting like the perfect couple. Nighttime comes around after a few drinks, a lot of drinks. And then it's just the same thing over and over again. Then you become strangers. It's just heartbreaking. And knowing what you could be, that was the torture I was living in.
No, that's, did you face any like stigma or judgment from friends when you got sober?
It's so interesting. We were blessed in the sense that our lives became so small. There weren't too many people that had that. We didn't have any judgment from like people. Say we went to a church, people already knew, like we didn't have any of that because our lives were so small. But we had really nice neighbors who kind of knew we were going through, and they would invite us over for like a football game or whatnot, but they knew things had changed. And so we felt the grief, right? We felt the difference. I don't think anyone else really did. But no, I never felt that way. Even in the amends process, my friends, and I'm really lucky in the sense, they were always like, I'm just so glad you're doing well. It is that simple. But no, I haven't faced stigma. I don't share it with the world. This is the most I've ever done publicly, but I did it mostly when my son was little, just to kind of, for his kind of growing up. But I've learned over time, we don't need to have a stigma because this is such a real illness that we have to be comfortable talking about it. If anything, it breaks it. I'm night and day from who I was to who I am now. But yeah, I'm grateful in that sense. I haven't faced that. No.
No, I appreciate you sharing that. I'm thinking kind of early on, like, but what was it? What helped you stay committed when those days got really tough early on?
So there's that, we talk about that spiritual toolkit, and my sponsor just really, I got really lucky with someone who wanted me to have these little disciplines early on. And mind you, I had to take action to do it. I think it was a combination of her setting kind of, here's what we do, and me taking the little actions. Like I was not a morning person when I got sober. Okay. But she said, you call me between this window and this window if you want to connect. And I did. And these tiny little actions I took are still they're so instilled in me, in my foundation, that is what I would say is what you asked. So yeah. Mm-hmm. Just tiny little, simple little tools, right? But, yeah. But also getting involved in service. That was a huge part of me feeling a part of again. I remember a woman, she had like 4 years sober, and she was so cool. And it was at this meditation center I used to go to for meetings. And I remember her asking, even just saying hello to me, I felt seen. And she was like, you want to go to the coffee shop with me? And I was like, oh my gosh, she's inviting me to coffee. Like, it's so crazy. But this woman asking me to hold doors led to me really understanding the importance of getting to a meeting an hour early or 30 minutes early and setting up, getting to know people when I did not want to know people, like getting uncomfortable. Like I used to be upset at the guys that were close to my husband, even though they were the nicest guys. Now I love them, but all these little things I just kept doing. And then the service positions I would just say yes to. That is really where I just feel like I know what that's my default. Like when I'm feeling a little like, oh, I'm not doing enough, that's where I know I need to plug in. Am I, one of the reasons why we started a big book meeting, like I am at that meeting every week, no matter what. But man, yeah. Anyway, you went off on a little tangent there too.
Yeah, I love it. My old sponsor, Mike, he used to, when I'd call him and I would, tell him some major catastrophe that was going, there was always a major catastrophe going on in my life. And he would always say the same thing. He would say, Joe, what have you done to help somebody today? Mm-hmm. And it was like, what does that have to do with the way I'm being treated? But it was, and it instilled in me, like you said, I mean, service, is so important. So, helping others, in all kinds of ways. So what are some of the ways that, somebody out there is listening could be of service or could help others that maybe people don't think about?
People don't think about, well, I would say one of the hardest yet easiest acts of service in program is to call someone. I know it sounds simple, but it really is. And it's the easiest tool you can think of. What else could you do? Oh man, I always am like, if you've taken the steps, gosh, be a sponsor. I know that sounds like a big ask for a lot of people, but I love that step. It puts me right back in one. Taking someone to a meeting, talking to, the best thing you can do is talk to someone before and after the meeting. If anything, stay 10 minutes after, get there 10 minutes before. Our group, we talk about this. It is vital to approach the first person that comes to that door if you've never seen them. That is the easiest thing. It's easier than picking up the phone. And yet it really isn't hard. It really isn't easy for a lot of people. I mean, I'm an extrovert to the core, right? So I don't have issues with that, but man, I will say if that's one thing you want to get back, if you're struggling or if you're kind of off the beam a little, or it's been a while, go talk to someone you don't know in that meeting. Cause I can tell you right now, they'll appreciate it. Even if they're like, who is this? That has been one of the best things for our group and for myself. And of course, my husband, I talk to everybody when they walk through that door. It's important. Yeah.
It very, really is important. And it's, because it takes guts to walk through those doors for the first time. I still think it's one of the bravest things that people do, because it's really admitting that I have this problem and I don't have an answer. Maybe you do,
Yeah. And it keeps us, and it also keeps things alive, because it's easy to sit. It's easy to have time, in these rooms and have quantity over quality. It's easy to sit on the back row and have your hands crossed and think you know it all. And it's easy. And the thing is, we're all just a bunch of drunks trying to get well and stay well. And all I have is today, right? I can't stay sober on yesterday's sobriety. And so even if I talk to that person, there's something there. It's magic. And it's that spiritual connection that we get through this. And because it's really easy to isolate. I mean, it's so fast. It happens so fast. So if that's I would say that could be the easiest thing to do. It's definitely easier than picking up the phone. So.
Well, I heard a really cool thing said about, calling. It's like, cause we give people numbers. Mm-hmm. And it's the hardest thing to do for somebody, especially somebody new, to call. And I have a friend who always says we should get their number and call them. And and that's the key. Like if we will call you, you and if you answer, we will help you, but you have to answer, we would do our best to help you. But, what are some of the good things that have happened to you in your life in sobriety?
Oh man. So the biggest gift I've gotten is peace of mind, right? That's where this thing lies in the center of our mind. And so I have peace today. I don't have like, yeah, I just don't carry a lot of that fear I was sharing about when I was so young and that spiritual malady. I'm straightened out there. And I have the awareness around when I'm not straightened out there. I know what I need to do. My home is very peaceful, right? There's no broken electronics. There's no fighting. There's no one walking on eggshells. I think that's been the biggest gift for our son. And he wasn't raised around alcohol. And I'm not saying that things can't change if your children are raised around alcohol, but he hasn't been exposed to that. He's aware when we go to meetings. He's not quite, he doesn't quite understand it, but he's like, okay, you're going to your meeting, have fun. I'm glad you're helping people, all that stuff. But our home life is very nice, very peaceful. I keep saying that. As a mom, I get to be very present in his life. Like my mom was in my life. I always wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. I really wanted to be a part of that. Seeing him grow, and first of all, being a mom, I just wasn't ever expecting to have a family. So that has been the best gift. And I am a very active mother, very hands-on. He is involved in everything. Let's put it that way, even though he's a lot more laid back than I am. And the meeting you mentioned, the big book meeting, that took a while. A few years ago, I had a women's meeting at my house, and it was great. But eventually, you can't do it all the time. So that changed, and then I was looking for a place to have another big book meeting, and it didn't land for a while. But then eventually, the pastor was like, "You email me back," and it was the right timing, and we just got really lucky. And so we just got lucky, and we started. It was like 6 of us, and we had no idea where we were going, but that's what the book is. You let it lead. And for now, we have about 40 people every Monday night, and it's been great. It's been great. I get a little nervous. Are we doing this right? But it's just that's the cool thing about it. I've got nothing but time to continue to grow in understanding and effectiveness. So that's why I love what we're doing. That's the main stuff in my life. But peace of mind is always something I have. And some of my friends, one of the guys asked me, I want what you have, Gabby. And I'm like, I'm here because I took action. And you go to a lot of meetings, but you're still, bondage of yourself right now. You're in that bondage. And he's like, I want peace like you do. And I'm like, it's right here. But yeah, that's my biggest gift.
Yeah. My buddy always says, if you want what we have, you have to go where we go and do what we do. And you can get what we have. We don't have it, And you also made me think of Mike. Mike was my first sponsor, and just really, he passed away like in 2020. But he's always a, big part of my life. But he always would say, did you drink today? And I'm like, no. He's like, your program's working just fine, And you got to remember that. Like we think, oh, we're not doing this right, or the big, you're doing just fine.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Oh.
Yeah.
It's we're very lucky. It's a blessing, and we can't just keep it though. We got to give it away. And it's so much fun when you can get someone who's willing to take the action. It's cool, and you get so much from it. Don't knock it till you try it. A lot of people are so scared of sponsorship, and I just say, we have a whole chapter in the book for us on sponsorship, and just see what their willingness is. You aren't going to get anyone sober. They got to take the action. You can just help them. And I love it. Step 12 is just, I wish we emphasize it a lot more. Maybe we do. Maybe I shouldn't say that.
Well, I think it's probably not clearly stated, but my understanding of what the 12th step is, carrying the message is actually carrying the steps. And that's what people need to, I think. Probably when you're saying it's probably not emphasized enough, I think that we miss that. Like sponsorship is part of that because it's carrying the steps. And anytime, when I'm working with people now, it's like I tell them, and I stole this from my wife, so I will say that she's in the program too. So we're like you guys, but nice. But she always says we the steps we go through the steps, not just for the person or the individual. For me, we go so they can teach the next person.
Yep.
And that's the whole idea, is we teach them how to teach others.
Because if not, what is the unborn alcoholic going to do? Right. I mean, it's just, I'm here when anyone wants to do it, and that's why we continue to approach, right. And carry this message. And it's just beautiful. But yeah, so that's my story in a nutshell, but anything else?
Great story.
Oh,
great
we could talk for days, I'm sure.
Well, let me ask you this, because you kind of talked about God a little bit, and what's your spiritual life like? What does that look like for you?
So when I started and took action and was ready, like you said, I surrendered, not really knowing what I was doing. I started seeking different spiritual paths. I went to meditation centers. I went to church, but I really struggled with this. I had this fixed idea, right, of old prejudice of what church was. And so I started going to non-denominational church because I did it for me because I wanted to connect to the community and be of service and volunteer. But I also wanted to give my son an opportunity that I didn't have. And it's not blaming anybody, because I'm sure my mom might listen to this, but I wanted to give my kid an experience that maybe he could have something if on his own, right, and make a decision. And so that evolved into me seeking God. And as I started, staying sober and living again, I have an experience with God that's, I would say, through more of that church. And it was, I can't put it in a box for you, but it really is the most powerful thing I use today is meditation. I didn't live in 10-11 for a while. I didn't quite understand those steps in the beginning, but I make time for God now, because if I don't, what's the point? And it's so easy to get busy and caught up in life, and life gets lifey, and before you know it, I forget. And that had to go through that as well, around 8 years in sobriety. And I had to go back to my toolkit and go back and start from scratch. And so I now carve out time, intentional time, instead of like jumping on my phone. I make more than 2 minutes with him or whatever you want to call it. And it has been really cool. It's just, the mind's part of the body. It's an organ, and we can hear our higher power, however you want to look at it, when I get quiet. And I've learned that mostly this past year and a half. It's something I'm new to, but oh man, if we can tap into this cool sense of an experience, something bigger than us, that's gotten me out from this hell I've been living in. I don't know. It's right there for us to do, even though it seems so weird and foreign. But I've started doing the meditation and getting quiet, and it's a tool I have to use daily now. It's like I get excited for it. I did an hour meditation the other day, and I was like, God, this is what the Oxford group used to do, like this is the stuff that they did, and I want to continue to grow towards that, because I kind of put this idea that I have to stay busy and I have things to do, but I only have this life because God gave it to me. And of course it's a God of my understanding. So it's hard to explain, but yeah, that's what God is to me. And it's love, and it's peace of mind, right? That's what it gives me. So.
And I love that you're doing meditation. I had my sponsor after my course was Matt. Shout out to Matt F. And I was like, he was big on meditation. I was like, I don't know how to meditate. I've never meditated before. So literally we started a meditation meeting and that's how I learned how to meditate. And it was really cool. And it really, and I remember the first time he said, we're going to do this for 20 minutes. And I was like, 20? Like, didn't we try? When did we start at 2?
Right.
But
yeah.
There is a purpose behind all of it. Yeah. So that's awesome. And an hour meditation. Good for you. So is there anything that you wanted to talk about that we haven't?
I feel like because when you have a little bit of time, and I'm, I just scratched double digits, right? And I'm sure some people would chuckle at that. I know a couple of my people would laugh, but they get it. And so I think what's important is when when I like to talk about this real quick. When I left, I moved out of Atlanta. We live a little bit further out to have we built our dream home, and it's just beautiful up here. We love it. And this was during 2020. So you can imagine, and life got full and busy, and it's so easy to forget, why you have this life. And I had to kind of experience untreated alcoholism. I had to see my character defects coming out. And I'm so grateful for the foundation and that toolkit that I have, that my sponsor really, helped me build in the beginning, in myself by taking action, because I started to being aware of that stuff. And my default is that I know what I need to do. And that's why it's so vital to build that strong foundation. And I got a new sponsor, and I took the steps again, and then I really started reading and studying and experiencing this book. And that's what I've been doing these last few years. But I had to take going through it and the awareness. And I'm really grateful, because I kept hearing things like, oh, I was 20 years sober and I drank again. I was, 20 to 15 years sober and I drank again. That terrified me, because I wasn't experiencing those thoughts, but we had those mental blank spots. And that's why I was just like, oh my gosh, is this going to happen? This could happen. Right. And so I would say just the toolbox, that toolkit, that spiritual toolkit we talk about, really doing this thing like to the best of your ability. It's so important, because now that's my default. I'm grateful. And so, I don't know. I just love Alcoholics Anonymous so much. I get excited for, conferences and all these things, big book weekends. I'm such a nerd when it comes to AA, but I'm just grateful I'm in that group, because I don't want to lose what I have. I just don't. And I'm not trying to be scary, but this thing kills, and I want to forget that. So I feel honored to be here and to be able to share a little bit of my experience, strength, and hope, even though it is past my bedtime. I'm just kidding. It's hilarious. It's not even 8:00 here, but that's what happens. I get these mental blank spots just because I'm in my 40s now. I forget.
You did absolutely great, and I appreciate you sharing your story. And it's a great message of hope that you bring, and so thank you for that. But I can't let you go without doing our rapid fire questions.
All right, let's do it.
No pressure, Gabbi, but pressure. No, I'm just kidding. All right. What is your favorite recovery slogan?
Oh, sorry. I'm totally blanking on it, but it's I would say it's probably easy does it.
What is your least favorite recovery slogan?
Oh gosh. It works if you work it, when we chant after the meeting.
What do you think is your sobriety superpower?
Oh, the awareness of being uncomfortable.
If you could say one thing to your former self, what would it be?
It's okay.
Yeah.
You're not a bad person. You're just a sick person.
What song do you play to lift your spirits when you need a boost?
Oh, that's a tough one. Anything by Bob Marley, probably.
If you could grant yourself one wish to help with your recovery, what would it be?
One wish that I would grant myself, not get complacent. Always be energized, and that's just not reality. We're human.
What step do you love the most?
Step 12.
What step do you love the least?
That's a tough one. I would probably say step 9, right?
What is one of your favorite movies?
The Prestige.
Oh. And finally, if heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
This could make me cry. Just your dad's ready to see you. Well, maybe my mom too, because hopefully by then they'll be together. But you know what I mean. Make me tear up.
Well, you're amazing. So thank you. Thank you for your willingness to come on the show.
Oh yeah. I love this. This is wonderful. And I appreciate you, Joe. Thank you so much.
And now for the rest of you folks out there, if this episode meant something to you, share it with one person who needs hope today. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, take 30 seconds to leave a 5-star review. It helps this message reach someone who's still struggling and doesn't know where to turn. A new episode of The Cup of Joe Show drops every Thursday at noon. You can listen anytime at thecupofjoeshow.net or on your favorite podcast apps, Podbean, Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and more. Just search for The Cup of Joe Show. Don't forget the "the." And if you're looking for daily encouragement in your recovery journey, subscribe to our friends at the Daily Ponderables. Daily inspiration delivered right to your inbox every morning. Please like, follow, subscribe, and share because someone out there needs to hear this today. Have a good day, everybody.
It's just a laid-back vibe, baby.
We hope you enjoyed today's Experience, Strength, and Hope. We are so grateful you decided to join us. Please share this episode with someone who might need it. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe. Remember, no matter where you are in your recovery journey, you are not alone. Reach up and reach out to someone. Please do not suffer in silence. Until next time, let's take it 1 minute, 1 hour, and 1 day at a time. Thanks for listening to The Cup of Joe Show.